So, folks, I've got with me a very grand gentleman of the blues. He's a U.S. native. He's also a very well-versed guitar player. So much so that Joe Bonamassa actually calls him a national treasure. So we've got Tinsley Ellis right in front of us. So Tinsley, after doing God knows how many tours you've been doing, but I know that you literally started, and I pardon the pun, on the Landslide as your first record label, and then you moved to Alligator Records, Telarc, and one more which I can't recall, and then you came back to Alligator recently, and I personally had the chance to get to know you through various albums, but the one that I remember most is Ice Cream in Hell.
Yes.
That one came out, and it was just before the pandemic, and then during the end of the pandemic in 2022, you released Devil May Care. And now we've got this brand new album that you're dropping in February, which is not, I forgot the name of the album.
Naked Truth.
Naked Truth. And one of the singles that's available to actually listen is Devil in the Room,
Yes.
which is a saying that you got from a very good friend. And I apologize, I forgot his name, but I know he's a colonel. That's all I remember.
Colonel Bruce Hampton. He was a jam band favorite from the state of Georgia all the way back to the 1960s. And Dwayne Allman got him his first record deal, and Bruce Hampton is was a good friend of Frank Zappa and pretty much everyone, and the Grateful Dead, and pretty much everybody. And unfortunately, we lost him a few years ago, and he, when I used to perform with him, he would tell us before we'd go on the stage, he'd say, "Let's put the devil in the room." So I wrote this song, "Devil in the Room," in his honor.
It's a very upbeat tune. I can't wait to hear the whole album because apparently this one has been quoted as being a very natural gem coming from you. You had the time that you composed during the pandemic. You composed about 200 songs.
Yes, I have.
And some of these songs are going to be on this album, and some were on the Devil May Care.
That's true.
Now, with the change of society as we know it, because the pandemic did a lot of things, slowed us down. It allowed us to think, okay, is this what I want to do? Do I want to do something else? It hasn't changed much in regards to musicians such as yourself. Have you decided to go out and do more touring? Because I know you've been very active in the past. You used to do up to 165 days a year.
Oh, more than that. I think some years ago, we did 300 dates a year, which means there's going to be, if you do that many shows, there's going to be some really weird venues, playing at prisons and nudist colonies and all kinds of stuff. Nowadays, I just want to play the good places. But you mentioned Ice Cream in Hell, and when that album came out in January of 2020, of course, the pandemic hit March of 2020. So we got 6 weeks of touring, and then I was off the road for almost 2 years until Devil May Care came out. And that would have been in January of 2022. So fast forward 2 years to now, and the new album, Naked Truth, which is my first all acoustic album of Delta and Hill Country Blues, and also some folk music as well.
Which actually brings to light the fact that you started off acoustically, but you eventually went into electric, and you supported your electric tastes. with your first guitar and the one that you're currently playing now? I know that as a guitar person, you probably have like 3 or 4 guitars that you bring or use on a reserve basis, depending on what you're doing.
Oh, more than that. I'm surrounded by them, and a lot of electric guitars, but my main two acoustic guitars that I'm touring with now is a 1969 Martin D35 uh, that my dad got me when I graduated from high school in 1975. And then also
Okay.
a 1937 National Steel guitar, which would have been the kind of thing that people like Son House or Muddy Waters would have played back in the day. And but of course, I still continue to write electrically. I'm performing acoustically now to support the all acoustic Naked Truth album.
Well, that's good because the acoustic brings out the true. Not to say that you were never true in the past, but it literally gives us your personal essence without too much grunge coming through from electric guitar styles. Um, so tell me this: when in the past, I'm trying to formulate the question properly. Um, you started off very young, and here you are now, 66 years old, and like I mentioned at the beginning, well preserved. Although you'd like to say otherwise.
Fingers
Uh,
crossed.
uh, uh, with the album itself, when did you actually start working on getting it recorded?
Well, this is an album. This all acoustic album is one that I've wanted to make for a really long time, 20, maybe 30 years. And I record in my home studio, and you know, been pretty much like 95% electric, but every once in a while I would write an acoustic song and kind of
Hmm.
put it back and put it in a file, and it's called Acoustic Songs. And I looked at that file one day and I said, wow, I've got the makings for a really cool album that, you know, bridges the gap between R.L. Burnside and Leo Kottke. And that's what this album became. So I've been working on this a really long time. I just
Okay.
basically got up the courage to break the news to Alligator Records, a year and a half ago. And of course, a record label is gonna, point out the pros and cons of any kind of left-hand turn an artist is going to make. But it's really great that they supported me in this one.
Well, I can't see them saying no. I mean, you've got the chops. It's just a slight change. It's still the same musical instrument. It'd be different if you decided I'm going to go on to xylophone blues style.
Or polka music or klezmer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, so I didn't shock anybody with that. This is just it's the same me. It's just the guitar is rocking, but it's unplugged. And that National Steel, it rocks as hard as any electric guitar I've ever played.
Yeah, the one thing that I remember doing research on the National Steel guitar is that it was cheap during the time period when it came out because it was basically built out of tin. But the the guitar was favored in juke joints mostly because it was also a method of defense if a brawl actually broke out.
It would be, yeah.
So they actually use that to help themselves. But then again, I mean, I've seen so many people actually use those guitars nowadays. It's like breathing a breath of fresh air when you hear it played beautifully, slide or not. It still comes out
Yeah.
sounding like the angel of heaven.
Well,
Um,
Kevmo is a great purveyor of guitar resonator guitars, and others, of course. John Hammond and Johnny Winter was great on one. I think that they were originally probably made because it's got the palm trees and stuff etched in it. I think they were made to play Hawaiian music on. You're supposed to lay it on your lap and play it overhand with a slide. And
Uh-huh.
blues musicians got a hold of them because they make a lot of racket, and we declared it a blues instrument. But I believe that it was probably made. There was a Hawaiian music craze uh, around the time that my country got Hawaii. I'm not sure how that happened, but we did. And I think there was a lot of interest in Hawaiian music at the time.
I'll probably do some Googling and find out exactly when Hawaii got annexed to the U.S. But
NX would
um,
be one way of putting it, probably.
so you've recorded it in your home studio. Was
Yes.
there any participation with any guest artists at all during this particular period?
No, it's just me, and hence the title for the album, Naked Truth. It's just me, and it's bare bones, but there's a lot of foot stomping on it, a whole lot of foot
Okay.
stomping, and I drew so much inspiration from R.L. Burnside, and he was one of a kind. He was like the last of the Mississippi juke musicians, and Junior Kimbrough as well, and it's just got a real foot stomping sound to it. Of course, they got what they uh, musically, their inspiration was people like hill country Mississippi blues artists like Mississippi Fred McDowell comes
Hmm.
to mind, and it's just a real hypnotic foot stomping kind of sound, and it's just some of the best shows I saw was when it was just RL stomping his foot and playing the slide, and that's what I'm doing on this album, trying to
You
do.
be well, I'm pretty sure that you did. If the one track that you released prior to the album dropping on the 9th of February is to say anything, I can't wait to hear the rest. Um,
It's a
now,
lot like that.
as
Yeah.
as a musician, you started off listening to the greats that gave you inspiration when you were growing up, and at one point, uh, a friend of your friend, I think his brother, mentioned, well, why don't you go see BB King? He's coming to town.
That's true.
And with that, you have a piece of history that you've been carrying around ever since. He broke a string
Hmm.
without pausing to change his strings. He was still playing from what I remember
Hmm.
reading. He gave you the string, and
It's
you've
right.
been
It's right here somewhere. It's over there in that pile of stuff. I've got a folder with all my pictures, with all my heroes, and autographs and
memorabilia.
stuff. Yeah. I don't want to put it in the scrapbook because once you put it in a scrapbook, it means that the end is near. So I just kind of threw it in an envelope and really enjoyed, keeping it for all these years. And like I said, it's not sure where it is, but it's over here somewhere. I think.
That's okay. Do you carry? Do you bring it with you when you go out on tour?
No, I don't. It's just over there. And when I get back home, if I there's a lot of people, a lot of my heroes are gone. I've got in that folder, I've got pictures of me playing with Albert Collins and Sun Seals and Lonnie Mack and all my heroes, and they're all gone. And Buddy Guy, but he's still going.
Yeah.
Uh, so really, it's kind of a drag because and Greg Allman, the rock people too. They're gone, but they make newer versions of them. I was with Derek Trucks a couple of nights ago at a memorial service for a friend, and of course Derek Trucks is keeping the slide guitar going.
Yeah, he's in the Tedeschi Trucks band, as far as
Yes,
I can remember.
and
Uh,
the Allman Brothers too for a while.
oh, really? Okay.
Hmm.
See, there's a lot of, as far as I know, when it comes to blues, it's it's like a grand organism that keeps on evolving in so many ways and styles, but it's interconnected. So if you get to meet new people and they get to know you, and then there's something that happens where you decide to do a collaboration of sorts
Hmm.
on the project. So it's amazing. Out of all musical styles that I've actually grown to enjoy, it's one of the rare ones that I actually have fun dancing to, depending on the style. Slow blues drag is something that I enjoy doing once in a while.
Hmm. That's very true, and it's very danceable. In fact, I was wondering how my acoustic thing would go over, and I played some festivals, and they kind of cranked me up. And I looked out there, and there was hundreds of people dancing. So as long as I keep it upbeat, keep the groove going, then it's gonna be like that.
Yeah. So apart from the guitars, do you use any other musical instruments when you're composing?
Piano. A lot of songs have been written on the piano, electric piano, Wurlitzer electric piano,
Oh,
and
nice.
I've been writing songs lately and adding mandolin to them. And some of the great Led Zeppelin songs, like Going to California, have got a beautiful mandolin part on it. So, I like rock music too very much, and blues and rock. It's kind of the same thing as long as it's not, oh, too far out there or too symphonic. It's going to have the blues in it.
Well, it could be symphonic, but you'd have to make sure that you've got the proper brass instruments to actually give it that oomph. But that would be the only one that I probably accept, like the Texas horns being thrown into an electric version of some of the tunes that you put out
Hmm.
as folk acoustic. So we're going to be looking at the future and hope that you'll be on tour with some great musicians to support you. Are you going to be doing this tour alone? I'm assuming yes, because if it's just the
Yes,
naked truth and it's you solo,
I'm going to
uh,
be doing the whole thing, and I've got all the lower 48 states covered, and hopefully be able to get up into Canada again. I've had so many fun times playing in Canada. That's one of my favorite audiences in the world, really. And it's a blues loving country. And get back over to Europe. Played in Moscow. I'll probably give that one a little break. Played in South America
mhm.
and Australia. And, hopefully get. I've never played in Asia. That's a place I haven't played. So hopefully get over to Asia at some point.
Oh, if you do, they'll love you. That's a certainty. They
I
have
would
a
I would hope so. I mean, they love Southern music, and I would think that probably somebody banging away on a National Steel guitar, that would probably be somewhat of a novelty.
more than likely. They have a voracious appetite when it comes to blues people. For one, an interview I did this year, last year, with Lloyd Spiegel. He just as I was doing the interview, he was prepping to go on the trip to tour in China.
Wow.
Yeah, so and the Canadian musicians from New Brunswick, a lot of the blues people tend to want to tour, but they don't tour too far out. And if they
Hmm.
do, it's usually Europe because it's French Canadian music,
Hmm.
and there's a big market overseas apparently, from what I've been hearing from the musicians and the singers.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I hope that I hope to get the opportunity to play everywhere, really, and play often as well, not just cherry pick, but play frequently everywhere. And
yeah.
it's a big world out there. And before I got with Alligator Records, I just pretty much played up and down the East Coast, from Boston down to Key West, Florida, and got with Alligator Records, and they're worldwide. So that was kind of the turning point for me.
Mm. Well, it takes a label sometimes to give you the extra leverage after that. It's just learning curves depending on how young you are and how savvy you
Uh-oh.
are.
Yeah.
So now that you've done this and you're going to be touring, we come down to the man, the person behind the music, the human being called Tinsley Ellis. You were born in one state and you were raised in South Florida.
Yes.
Currently, where do you reside?
I live in Atlanta, Georgia, where which is where I was born, but I grew up in South Florida. Florida and Georgia bordering states, not that far away, really. But I definitely consider myself both a Georgian and a Floridian. And Atlanta's been real good to me. Been able to play with a lot of people here in Atlanta, not just blues people, but rock people like Government Mule and Derek Trucks and Allman Brothers, and people who have come out of this area. And I'd like to think that I got a regional sound, deep sound of the deep South.
I would say so. Based on what I've heard from all the records that I've been perusing and delving into, yes, that's a definite. Now, for yourself, apart from music and apart from composing and dabbling, is there a hobby that you tend to enjoy when you have time off?
Luckily, I have made my hobby my occupation, and I
Okay, so
consider
music.
myself very fortunate to have been able to do what I love for a living. And I never lose that gratitude to being able to do that. And even when, like I said, when I wasn't touring
Hmm.
due to the pandemic, I was still playing music. So it must be something I really enjoy doing. And for a lot of years, we would go and play all over America and Canada, and nobody knew who we were. It was
Oof.
terrible to have, six people in the audience or something like that. Just awful. So discouraging. And now, because we've gone over and over and over and over again, played it over and over, finally people kind of know what it is I'm doing. And so I'm glad that I'm not starting out right now.
I'm sorry that you had a soft start and a disheartening one to boot.
Very,
But
very long time. I like to say it's been a long, hard climb to the middle.
well, at the very least, the people that got to know you when you were climbing still have that in their memory bank, and they tend to go and frequent your shows or listen to your music.
Yes, very
Uh,
loyal fans in the blues.
Now, with that said, the last question is going to be an off the wall one.
Okay.
But I've been asking it to every single one that I've been interviewing. The question is simply, what's your favorite food dish?
What is my favorite what?
Food dish.
Pizza.
There we go.
Anything that tastes as good as pizza's got to be terrible for you, right?
Only in moderation. It's pretty good, but if you overdo it and you eat it for 3 months straight, and that's the only thing that you're eating, ooh, the stomach becomes upset. But I agree.
Yeah,
It's
moderation is not something that I excel at. I am to moderation what Raymond Burr was to pole vaulting. And I don't know if you're old enough to remember Raymond Burr, but he was a rather stout man. And the pole vaulting and Raymond Burr go together as well as me in moderation. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing.
at the very least, we know that you don't do moderation when it comes to your music, and we
No.
can't wait to hear the new album once it releases. Hopefully, we'll get you to actually come to Eastern Canada. By Eastern Canada, I don't mean Quebec or Ontario. I mean the Maritimes. Where I live, it's Moncton, New Brunswick. I'm right close to Maine.
Well, I've performed close to there one time. Was in, I think it's close. Halifax, is that close?
No, well, it's close. It's in Nova Scotia, which is about a 2.5 hour drive from Moncton. So we're centralized in the Maritimes. We
Well,
have,
relatively close. That's
yeah.
relatively close considering the distances I'm about to be driving. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. And that's the only time. And I played in a hockey arena there. I'm assuming it was hockey. It was a big arena with Bonnie Raitt, and she was so nice. The nicest rock star I've ever met in my whole life.
Yeah, the group that we have coming down more than once in that area because they have friends that they like to visit is the group from Ontario called Monkey Junk.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, Steve Mariner and
Mm-hmm.
the whole gang, Matt Saab and
Mm-hmm.
Joey D.
Mm-hmm.
So they get to come down in the Maritimes more than once, and they usually play a gig or three, depending on what they have lined up. But they
I
usually,
sure would love to play there because that's a place I've never played where you live. And so put in a word for me with the powers of promotion, and I'll come play for you.
Moncton has a brand new brand. Well, there's many venues you can go to. There's the Tide and Boar, which is a gastropub,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a back performance area, which is a stage. They there's there, but if you're looking at a bigger venue where you'll have the capacity of bringing more than yourself with fellow musicians coming on stage, there would be the Avenir Center, which is the new performance slash arena for our local team. And then there's the grand old Capitol Theater, which has access to venues. Colin James played there recently.
Oh, Colin James, big
Yeah.
fan. I think it would have to certainly be a festival, um, some sort of a festival.
Oh, there are. And there's the Harvest Festival in Fredericton.
Oh yes,
It used to be the Harvest Jazz and Blues, but they rebranded under Harvest because they're bringing more musical acts that aren't blues or jazz related.
yes,
Um,
that would be the one for me because I've heard of them a lot.
yeah, and then there's a new one in northern New Brunswick. It's called the Blues du Bid de la Chaleur or the Chaleur Blues Festival. They had
Mm,
I can't remember. They had the Blues Beatles from Europe that
right,
came. They came and played for one evening
I know who that
during that
is.
festival. There you go.
Hmm. I
And
know the
then
Blues Beatles.
there's a few festivals that are popping up here and there. There's the Smoky Mountain Festival over in Nova Scotia, which you'd be uh, uh, you'd be interested in possibly visiting or playing at. It started off as a rock festival, but they have blues integrated into it.
The one that I played was Dutch Mason Blues Festival.
Yeah, that was the that unfortunately I went to for 2 years and they then closed.
Right, I knew that. We played one of the final ones, and that was the one that was the show with Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah.
It's nice to
So
make your acquaintance, my friend.
no, my it's my happiness of actually seeing you before you go on your tours. But thank you so much for taking the time, Tinsley. I
And
hope
I
to
hope you
meet you
get
soon.
a copy of the new album soon. I'm sure you could probably get them to push a button and send you the digital copy, which is how everybody listens anymore. And I hope
Yep,
you'll give it a listen and think of me. And so nice to make a new friend.
definitely. Have a nice
Thank
one.
you. Bye bye.